Hi, I'm Jennifer with Porcelynne, and today we are almost done with the videos. This is video 8 out of 9 for the Jackie Sports Bra, and today we're going to be finishing up our necklines. So on the front neckline, what I end up doing is we have like a little angle right here, and we're going to do an understitch just on the front neckline, and then we're going to be attaching the strap in the back. So now it's time to finish up our neckline. So I'm just going to clip hair here, undo my zipper, and we're going to flip this right side out. So this is, we're basically going to be sealing up the entire top part, and then we'll be closing up the center fronts last. So what I'd like for it to do is now on the side that has the hooks, we can actually take and line our necklines up. And this is actually the side that got a little bit munched. I can fix this because it's in the seam allowance, so I'll be able to stretch that a little bit. So we want this to line up at the top. We want our fronts to line up. And this is where it was a little bit tricky, because remember how we had to sew the hook tape on? That was definitely a little bit of a challenge. And what we want to do down here is we want to make sure that the waist bands line up. So can't pin through the bottom of the tape, but we can do that. So this is going to be my center front. We're going to end up sewing this completely closed. And that's on the hook side. The eye side we're going to keep open. Now, this part is actually a little bit challenging. So I am actually going to go and stitch this piece first. That way it doesn't move around on me and I make sure everything stays straight. And then I'm going to begin on my neckline. So I'm glad I closed that up. We can just double check to look to see, hey, how it goes. Hey, we got the zipper closed up, and then we've got that hook tape back there. So the seam allowance isn't really big right here, so you may end up wanting to go back and stitch this a couple times just to help reinforce it. That way we get a little bit closer. Or we can even take and, if you want to get closer to the zipper, we can fold it over and then just kind of do a little top stitch there. Okay, starting here at the neckline, we are going to pin and line these up edge to edge. Now we've got this little piece right here, so we left a little bit of an opening. And the reason we did that, we didn't sew up all the way, is because we actually are going to try and square our neckline a little bit. So I like to put a pin kind of right where that squared seam is, because we know that that's where we have to kind of pivot. Really? Not line it up right. There we go. So my necklines aren't perfect, but that's why you can fix it when you sew it. So I'm just going to kind of put that angle right there. We've got this front neckline. So we're going to sew here at our 3/8 of an inch, and I'm actually going to do this first stitch with a straight stitch, and just as a basting, just so I can make sure I get that corner that I want. I'm going to flip it around to check it before I go in and add the elastic and kind of secure it. So I'm also going to do the same thing on the other side. Now this side's a little bit different because we have this eye tape and we have the zipper. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to line up. So I'm looking at the self now. We're lining up the edge of that top tab to the edge of that hook tape. And if it's not the hook tape, it would be to the edge of the shield. So either way, they're going to line up together. So we're going to end up having like this little pocket here. And we're not closing this up yet. We want to make sure that our seams match here. And if they don't, you can probably fudge it a little bit, but you want to make sure that, because each place where there's a seam, it's important to keep keep it there. That way everything kind of goes together right. So if you're a little off at that point, you can just kind of do a manual hack to fix it. I must have cut my lining shorter, which is possible. Or I just didn't sew my seams perfectly. So stretch, I'm gonna make it work. Okay. So same thing over here. I'm just gonna take and I'm gonna do, here I can actually take and secure it. So I'm actually gonna take a straight stitch and back stitch here and come all the way to here and back stitch, and then I'm going to do basting from here on out. And then because when we put the elastic, we're going to put it on, we're not going to put it over here because that's not stretching, and so we're going to put elastic here to help kind of firm up the neckline. Okay, so my neckline is not perfect. It's actually far from perfect. I probably should have stitched up a little bit higher, but I'm trying to kind of make a little squared neckline. It doesn't have to be super squared. It'll look nice. So this one looks a little bit more squared, but I probably stitched a little bit too far. But no one's perfect. So if you would like perfection, then I would suggest working on it again. Okay, so now we've got this front neckline, and we can look at it to kind of see, do we have a nice angle here? And I would say yes, I have a nice angle here. It's a nice kind of corner there. So even though my sewing is not perfect, it still gives me that corner seam that I'm looking for. This one still looks pretty good. So even if you don't do a great job, it'll still be fine. Okay, so now we're gonna we actually want to secure the stitch on the neckline because we don't want this to pop. And I'm actually gonna be applying elastic on the neckline, and I'm gonna be putting it right here. And I'm actually going to be zigzagging it on because I don't want to be switching back from machine to machine. So I'm going to be zigzagging it, making sure that the farthest part of the zigzag, and this is going to be a permanent stitch, is going to be hitting kind of where my basting is. And even if it isn't, we can always go back and remove the basting stitches. We just want to make sure that we do have that zigzagged elastic on or overlocked elastic on here. And so I don't need to come all the way to this end, because that doesn't need to stretch. So we'll probably end it like right about here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to attach the elastic on that bit before we go on to the next step. Okay, so I have now added that elastic. Now for some reason you come in here and you no longer have that corner, you can actually come in and just kind of snip the corner of, whatever's holding it in. So you can snip a little bit of that elastic. But what I also like to do is, and I only do this on the front neckline, I don't do it anywhere else. Of course you can, it's going to get more difficult if you have thicker fabric, is I actually want to do an understitch. So I stitched the elastic, so as a refresher, I sewed the elastic onto the self side, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking and understitching. So that means that I'm going to be stitching the seam allowance towards the lining. And we can do that with the little zigzag also, so you kind of keep a little bit of a stretch there. I don't do this anywhere else on it, and this just helps kind of it roll to the neckline. And then if we end up having to do a little bit of snipping in here, it's a little bit more protected. So I'm going to do that understitch, and I will be right back. Okay, so my understitch on this front neckline, I did it all the way through the tab. And it's important to do that. That way we hold stuff down. We keep it held down. So we can then go in and clip here. Lose them, get stuck with strings. So again, looking at this front neckline, it will now, since we have done that understitch, it will help roll the lining to the inside so we don't see that lining edge. So you can see it has a nice little roll. You can see where the purple is and that blue. And we did this all the way here on this side. We were only able to get so close, so I wasn't able to get all the way up there, but I got as close as I was able to. And so what we can do is for that piece, we can actually pull that thread. If I can find the thread, pull it through to the back side. I'm actually wearing my glasses today, so I'm able to catch it. So that way it's not over here and it looks nice. Okay. That, on the other hand, does not look nice. And so this actually, the top of our zipper is pretty much done on this side. Looks like I may have stretched my fabric. Oh well, this is just the sample. So the next steps, which I'm actually going to show you because I already have a video I did on all the rest of it. So I'm actually just going to cut that in. I just wanted to make this a little bit clearer for these beginning steps. And then the rest you're just going to be still continuing working with the neckline. We can clean finish the top because we're going to be folding that over a ring. Then you're going to sew the elastic to the side neckline. Then you're going to attach your straps in the back. And then you can finish this. And then the last video will actually show you how to make the final finishes on it, and it's going to be the one with the black lining. Okay, so we're also going to clean finish the top of the strap. So since this is going to be where it's going to get hooked to a slider, we want to have this clean finished so we can do that real quick. And I'm going to do that with this machine. So kind of take it where that is. It looks like the black got a little bit stretched, so I'm just going to trim that down. So this is at that strap point. And straighten back. And you could stabilize this a little bit. Once this is sewn and put into the slider, it's really not going anywhere. So you don't have to worry about reinforcing this. So as you see, you're going to end up with kind of a little corner there, and then we can always clip that little corner and make it so it's a little less pointy. There we go. Beautiful corner. Okay, so now we've got our armhole. And yes, we are going to have attach the strap in the back, but we don't need to do that right away. So we're still working our way around. So I'm going to come over here. So we're going to work on this piece. And so we're going to shove it in kind of like a little burrito. You guys remember the burrito? So you kind of shove everything on the inside. And you just have to make sure that you have an opening to pull it out. But remember that center front was completely opened, so we can do that. So I'm gonna pin it at my side seam. Gonna do a pin around the armhole. And this we can just take and straighten, do this with the zigzag or with the overlock. I'm gonna do this with my zigzag because I don't have to move my cameras. Actually, I think the rest of this I can pretty much do with just this machine. So you can see I use some of that. Okay, so I've got my elastic again. And we're going to be sewing the elastic onto the purple side. So now I can actually get the elastic started in here so we have something to grab onto. Oops. And this is where you test. Oh yes, we need zigzag. Okay. There we go. There's my zigzag. Okay. So now we can take in and get this started. And so I'm taking it, kind of like giving myself like a little bit of an edge, because the farthest part of the stitch on this side is where you need to be at your seam allowance. But honestly, because this is only the armhole and this doesn't really affect the fit of it, you can put the elastic right on the edge. It's not a big deal. Okay, so we know that, let's clip some of these threads. We know we're gonna have to clip in this corner right about there to get that nice and sharp. And then also over here, because we got that huge bulk right in there. Okay, so now we've got to attach the strap. So I'm gonna keep it kind of as it is right now and grab my 2 straps. Okay, so we know we want it to be finished like this, right? We want it to look like this coming from the right side to there. So this really just gets plopped in the inside, right about here. So you have the purple side and the strap going towards the purple, and then we have everything else. So the black side going to the black side. And this I'm just going to sew with a straight stitch. Pretty good straight stitch too. Okay, before we do anything, we want to just double check that it's going to come out looking correct. Goes edge to edge, looks beautiful. Okay, now I'm going to do the other one the same way. So strap facing the purple, line that up. Bring that right to the edge. Stick a pin in that. Stab yourself. I'm sorry, that's what I do. Stab myself. Actually, looks like that black might need to be stretched just a little more. There we go. Okay. I'm trying to stretch that black on the bottom. So it's about the same, ends at the same point. Okay. And just double check that it is in there correctly. And the edges line up beautifully like that. So we can pop that back in. And remember, we still have one of these, this side open. So we can now put elastic in the back neckline. We can close up the back neckline. So I'm just going to stick some pins in it just to kind of keep it from moving and wiggling. So it's going to be on this side. Oh, zigzag. And now I want to try and get this as close to kind of where that strap is as possible. So we have a nice tight fitting strap in there. Out. So getting this side sitting right next to. Okay. Okay, now we can kind of clip that. Kind of clip the corner a little bit so we don't have to. When we flip it out, there's a little less bulk in there. So now I'm going to pull everything out through this, and actually before we do that, clip your threads, because if you're working with one of these really nice fabrics, it might actually show the threads through. So just snip, snip. So flip it right side out. And you can decide now if you want to do kind of your little stitch on this side. It's just a little bit harder to get into. We've got that corner. Roll it out. Get that corner out. Doesn't really matter. Okay. Looking good, looking good. Get my strap out. I'm not going to worry about doing the understitch. You certainly can. I just wanted to have it good around the front neckline, so we have that kind of shape that I wanted. Okay, so for the most part, it's almost completely done.